coffees, and we're ready to go. So I'm going to start by getting this wall back to its original condition. So I'm going to go reset profile. Everybody's good with the four walls. Everybody's good with the roof, right? I'm going to go ahead and take this and I'm going to go attach to the roof to connect those things together as well, right? And so let's go ahead just for the sheer joy of doing it. If you look at this roof, that edge is super, super thin, right? The structure is bigger in there for sure, but this exterior edge, what I'm seeing is really thin. So I'm thinking in terms of how we model this, how that appears, it might be kind of nice to make that roof thinner as well. Knowing that on the inside, well, maybe if I want to be super accurate, I need to pull the ceiling down to represent the structure a little bit more. But in terms of what I'm seeing on that exterior edge, I can't really blend those two things together very easily. So an easy approach to this is simply going to be to go edit type. Let's duplicate this, and I'm going to name this roof. And let's do about 2 inches. That is a really thin line right through there, right? Really, really thin line for that trim that goes from exterior wall to roof. So I'm naming that roof 2 inches. I'm editing the structure and making that 2 inches as well. And that's going to save us a little bit of heartache when we move this to twin motion. Cool? It gets us primed to be just a little bit closer to what that actually looks like. Even to the point where we could sneak it out just a little bit. Might do that next week. But for right now, we'll leave it exactly as it is. Okay, so my next step with this is to cut these larger openings. And the method, there are multiple ways to do it. And Mary and I, we were talking earlier just before class about the right way to do this, like how this would be done in school. And I'm going to show I can think of 3 different ways to do this, right? And so this is often a thing when we're working in 3D modeling. Always multiple ways to get something done. But I think actually just as we were talking through things, I think I've come up with what might be the best method for this. But let's look at the method that we used Monday first, and that is editing a profile. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to select my wall, and I'm going to go edit profile. This is going to give me a warning, and the warning is simply saying if you edit the profile, I can no longer automate the connection to the roof. Right? Because right now that's a mathematical definition where Revit is saying, okay, this profile is being modified by this roof. We are saying, nope, we are now manually modifying the profile. So that we are breaking that connection. And I'm saying I'm okay with that. Okay, so that's going to take us down to this box that's defining the wall. Okay? I know that I want this wall to follow the roof, so I'm going to use my pick lines tool and pick the inside or the underside of the roof, underside of the roof. I know I want to delete that line, and then I know I want to trim here to here, and I want to trim here to here to here. Next, well, I'm going to go ahead and green checkbox that just so we can see. It's going to give me a warning. I'm going to say yes, unjoin that element, and sort of I'm back to this condition again. Right? Looks like what I had. But now when I go to edit that profile again, edit profile, I am ready to start sketching in the window openings. Yeah.
I was just wondering, like, if you could, the 2x6 wood framing, what thickness is that?
5.5 inches.
Okay, so I can just like go to, say, generic 6-inch wall, edit the thickness of that?
Yep, absolutely. Just make sure if you're editing the thickness of an existing wall, make sure you name it correctly.
Okay, what about for the interior walls? Because I already have some of those.
The interior walls, if it's assuming that it's a wood frame construction, it's typically a 2x4, which is going to be 1.5 inches by 3.5 inches. So what you're most concerned with is that 3.5 inch width.
Okay.
Okay, so I think somebody, if I remember correctly, the window was 18 feet. Is that right? Yes. Yes. Don't screw it up again, Dave. So we went 18 feet over. The window, the bottom of the window is at the top of the floor. So again, I'm using pick lines to select the top of my floor. And we're thinking that that window is 7 feet tall because it matches the top of the doors all the way around the property or all the way around the exterior walls, right? So at that point, I've got my basic lines put together. I can use split and trim to complete that closed loop that defines the wall, right? So I'm going to use split right here, and then I'm going to use trim, this to that, here, here, and here. Green checkbox, and I messed something up. Continue, that to that. Green checkbox. And that creates that opening. Cool? So let's go ahead and modify this wall to do the same type of thing. And let's look at, okay, who wants to tell me how long this one is? Has anybody measured that on the plan view? Looks like it's more than 18. Might be 24. All right, let's do 24 feet. Sounds good to me. So, should see the exact same warning message again when I go edit profile. Revit removes the top and base. That's totally fine. I'm going to use my pick lines to pick the floor. I'm going to offset 7 feet up. I'm going to offset 24 feet over to, again, have that exact same kind of setup. I can use split lines, this, and then I can go trim. Trim. 1, 2, 3, 4. Green checky box. And I've basically blown out the entire corner of the building, which is really cool, which is what makes that design really, really cool. One of the things that makes the design really cool. Right, so I kind of want to get everybody there, and then we are going to add in the glazing.
What do you do when it says that lines intersect and you can't? You have that issue.
Is that under edit profile?
Yeah.
Okay, so the question is, what do you do if you see intersecting lines? So let's just build that scenario really quick. So I'm going to go edit profile. And let's just do something that's going to throw that error message for me. Okay. Intersecting lines is going to be something like that situation right here. Right? Essentially, having those extra lines means this is no longer a closed loop. So if I green checky box this, it's going to give me that lines cannot intersect, which might not be the exact same error message that you're seeing, but it's really similar. If you will look, and sometimes you have to zoom out to see it, it will show you what is wrong, right? So right now it's highlighted for me those lines as orange. Other times it's going to give you a node at the end of your line of where a line is overshooting or something like that. But it will give you an indicator of what you need to go back in and fix. So that's what you need to look for. So in this case, I'm going to click continue. What you don't want to do is click quit sketching. Quit sketching sends you out of edit profile. Continue sends you back into editing so I can fix, green checky box, and get it right. Cool?
Even then, it doesn't let me see.
Might have to have somebody look over your shoulder. Okay.
And then I try identity?
I'm going to do one thing really quick to point out what I think is a potential fault and how I'm working through this. Oh no, it is kind of working. I know. Okay, I wanted to show one other method, and I think that doing this is the right method, right? In terms of using edit profile. But that idea that I am missing that connection to my roof could create a really serious problem if you have a really complicated roof form, right? This is a really easy roof form. It's really easy to go back in and just retrace it. I mean, that was 2 clicks, not a big deal. But there might be an occasion where you have a really complicated roof where using that edit profile would be absolutely the wrong move. So the other method that we could have done with this to create a hole in the wall, and again, the point of this is to create an opening of the wall and then put glass into it, right? Because that's often what we do in more commercial construction, higher end design. Windows, we're not shipping out sort of pre-packaged, pre-built windows. Again, if you look at the new building that's going up across the street, you will see both window types. Large panels of glass that are being manufactured on site with the glass coming in, the frames being built, the glass being placed in the frame. But then some of the smaller classroom windows that you're going around, you'll see those showed up as a simple window, and that's more of a standard punched opening. Okay, Revit can do both. I'm encouraging you to design your own glass, to design your own mullion system, because you have more design opportunities, more leverage in using this system. That's why I like to teach this method, okay? Which is different from a punched opening is window, and I put it in, right? That is a punched opening. And that's, you don't have a lot of opportunities for that. But the other way that I can cut a hole in a wall is using that window tool, but using a window that essentially isn't there. It's just an opening, okay? And so to do that, I can select my wall. Let's go to architecture here. And I can draw just an opening in my wall, right? So this is just a standard wall opening. So I'm going to go opening wall. I can select my wall. And then, oh dear, I can draw on that. I can't get rid of there. I think that one's it. Okay. Do you guys see how that works? I can go architecture, wall opening. And I can just start, I did it again. Wow. Wall, select the wall I want to do it with, left click, and go, right? Now, the problem with that, while it is nifty, it is a real pain to edit, right? It doesn't have that sort of drafting level of attention that I get with edit profile, okay? So I can come back in and say, okay, that edge should have been 8 feet away. This bottom edge should have been 4 feet away. Yeah, but it's a little bit chaotic, but it kind of works. It also is a little bit tricky to select them and delete them. Doable, but not as easy. Also, with my window tool, I can load in a window type that is simply a void. Right? So you do not need to do this, but I want you to see that it's there. I can go load family. I can go to my windows. And there is a window type in here that is just window opening. Like that. Okay, so those are just, I can tell it whatever size I want it to be, and it's simply going to cut a hole in the wall without putting a window into it. Right, so that window instance opening allows me, did it load in? Nope, it didn't. I've got to go a different process. I have to go insert, load family, instance opening. Well, we're not going to do that method today.
Please don't do that method.
What's that?
So please don't do that method ever, actually.
Okay, Mary says don't use that method at all. It works conceptually. We'll tackle it later. There might be an instance where you want to use it, but essentially what we're doing is we're dropping in a window without the guts. Okay, so we're just drawing in a void. Again, this method that I'm showing you really gives you the most control. Okay, so everybody should have at least one of those in place, right? So let's look at how we drop glass into those. Okay, so I'm going to go to my level 1 floor plan. And I'm going to zoom in on that area. So you can see right here where that edge is. Okay? And I'm going to go ahead and activate a new wall. So I'm going to go Architecture, Wall. And in this case, we are going to draw in Curtain Wall 1. And I'm going to draw this right on my center line. Across, and then right on my center line up to here. And it's giving me this warning message. And it's giving me that warning message because it's saying, Dave, you have just put a wall into a wall. Are you really sure that you want to do that? And in particular, it's doing that because those walls are doing this, which is ridiculous, right? So it's thrown that warning message because those two things probably shouldn't exist in the same place at the same time. I think if I would have done my settings correct at the very beginning, it probably would have been fine with it. It might not have thrown that warning message. But I never set the wall height right or anything like that. I just draw them in and adjust them. Much easier that way. So what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to drop that down. I'm just using that top grip. It should snap. You should see that snap to that edge, right there. And if you do it right, you're going to see this little lock right here. Okay, that lock, if I turn that, right now it is unlocked. If I lock the lock, if I change that profile, like if I need to make those windows 8 rather than 7, it's going to update. It's going to connect those, keep those two surfaces connected. Right? So when you're learning Revit, I don't recommend making all those connections, locking everything together. But as you get better and better at Revit, you definitely want to be activating those kind of features. Because as you edit, it's going to help edit all the other elements around what you're modifying. Right? And so that's what the lock is. So I'm going to do the same thing with this wall right here, with this curtain wall. Let me switch this to shaded, a little bit easier to see. So I'm selecting that wall. I'm grabbing my top grip, pulling it down, finding where it snaps, and then locking it.
Are your windows touching?
No, there's going to be a gap, right? So if I look at that in floor plan, so the question is, are the windows touching? And it was said with the tone of, why aren't they touching? Dave, you've done something wrong. Okay, so here's the thing with curtain wall 1, no mullions, right? So I'm actually going to need to define that as a corner mullion on one of the two panes of glass so that it bends around that correctly. Or, and what I often see done in school, and it's totally fine, is to build a generic component right there to act as a corner mullion. Right, so let's look at those in 3D, and let's start with this surface right here. So if we go back and look at this, there are two edges and one center line. Okay, so I'm going to go to curtain grid. I'm going to change this back to hidden line again. It's just going to be a little bit easier to see, I think. Curtain grid. And I'm going to grab that center point. Okay. Next, I am somewhere edge, and I don't know. What do you guys think? Oh, it's less than 18 inches, isn't it? 12 inches? This distance right here, you guys, here to here, 12 inches. I have proven to be very poor at this game as of late. What is it, Jules? Oh, you're actually, Jules is in the plan measuring right now. Awesome. The thing is, I don't think that those were in the floor plan, if I remember right. They are? Okay. Oh, it's Cliff House. Cliff House is actually drawn. The other, section 1, their windows are completely different than what was constructed.
That's 2 feet.
No way.
Well, if we're measuring from the exterior of where the exterior wall, but if we're measuring from exterior window, then it's 1 foot.
Well, okay.
Are we talking on the corner piece?
Yeah, here and here. Because those are the same. Okay, let's just do 2 feet. I'm good with that.
On the plan, I have them different, at least.
Yeah.
One is 1 foot, and then one is 1.9.
Okay.
So.
We're just making both 1.6.
Yeah, I think that sounds good.
We can make them both 1/6. All right. There's also, just in looking at this, I'm realizing as well, I was talking earlier about corner mullion. They went all Trixie-like. This is, and have you guys heard the term butt joint glazing yet? Yeah, there's a few nods and a few what the hells. So, very short story, but very important because you're going to hear this from when scholarships are announced here. There is a scholarship called the Butt Joint Glazer Scholarship. The year level, I think they were 2 years, maybe 3 years above me. They actually had dubbed themselves, their intramural teams, everything. They were the butt joint glazers. And this is a butt joint glazing detail. That is where you bring glass to glass with no mullion. It's called butt joint glazing. And they really liked it because it sounded nasty. And they would put it up in their intramurals. And eventually they couldn't name themselves that anymore because people thought it was wrong. As such, that made it even more popular with them. And so there is now a scholarship, an endowed scholarship. That group raised, I think, $25,000 to make sure that there was a $2,000 scholarship every year for study abroad. And it is the Butt Joint Glazer Foreign Study Scholarship. And right there, a butt joint glazing detail, which is pretty awesome. I've never got to tell that story actually in context before. Yeah.
So is this a scholarship I could apply for?
That is a scholarship everybody can apply for.
And should.
And should, because it's, yeah, I mean, that is, the bigger story is, there was one student that went with this class on the foreign study trip that was not in a good financial situation, and everybody bought their food for the entire trip. And so they wanted to make sure that they were doing their job so that that wouldn't happen again. And so it's a $2,000 or two $1,000 scholarships. And their mind is, that is cash in hand, buy yourself food. Right? Really good group of people, really good group of humans that put that together. And they named themselves the Butt Joint Glazers. They let me play basketball with them one year. It was fun. We didn't have shirts. If we would only had shirts that said Butt Joint Glazers on it, I'd be really happy. I would still wear it. Butt joint glazing, cool. So back to Arizona's question. Yeah, that detail is going to be entirely wrong in Revit, right? Because Revit assumes that you're going to put a corner mullion here. And that doesn't exist. So we're actually going to have to re-edit that. We'll worry about that beginning of next week. Okay, we're just going to leave that as a gap right now. Because Revit, by default, isn't going to put glass to glass. Because that is an uncommon detail. Okay? So, from here, back on target, Dave. Pretty simple from this point. You're just going to go mullion, all grid lines, click. Done. Point to note, if I go in my plan view, I want to make sure that the glass is to the outside edge. Right? We're not going to get so far into the details of is this actuating, is this not? But we want to make sure that that glass is to the outside edge. If it is not, if I select the line that is essentially building that curtain wall, right, which is this line right here, you will see a little flippy symbol. And that will push the glass to the inside or to the outside. Again, 99 times out of 100, we push that glass to the outside edge. Okay, so we need to do the same thing with curtain grids to the other side. And we'll tackle that in just a second. Questions? Or just eye contacting? All right. So it's all good. It's all good. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4 equal shapes. We might need the power of joules here again. No, we don't.
It looks like it's 3 squares. And
Yeah, I'm going to do 18 inches and then 3 squares. 18 inches and 3 squares.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, you just look at organic shape most of the time. It looks like that's 2 sections there. There's no way you can do it correctly.
Let's see what happens.
Alright,
Let's see what happens. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. It's going to be.
Square that wraps around the side.
Yeah. See, there's that.
Okay.
And then 1, 2, 3. But it's kind of one of those things. So, okay. All back on the same page. So, we're sort of looking at this as a system, right? So we're assuming that this opening piece of glass is the same size as these, 18 inches, right? Then this repeats 3 equal pieces of glass. And I don't know if that's exactly what it's doing, but that's how I'm going to make it. So the question that we were debating is how big should each one of those be? And this is where, again, if you're just thinking through it as visual geometry, you don't have to care, right? You just have to let Revit do its job, right? And that is, as a designer, I'm thinking I want 18 inches to create this pattern, right? And then 1, 2, 3, 4 equal squares. I said 3, right? So how I'm going to handle that on this side is I'm going to go curtain grid. And I'm going to place my first one, and I'm going to set it to, there it is, 18 inches, 1'6".
That makes the other one
Okay.
7.5.
It might, yeah, but I don't care, right? Because it's going to look fine, right? And so if like you can get in and draft the wall. But a lot of times when you're modeling, sometimes all that you really have to do is come in and, again, just sort of let Revit do its thing. Because I know I could go center point, which should be right there, 11.3 and 11.3. Center point, 5, 7.5, 5, 7.5. Center point, 5, 7.5, 5, 7.5. Done. Right, so I put my first one in, and then I had midpoint as a snap. That midpoint was from here to here, right? And so I can just click those and I don't have to worry about the dimensions. Sometimes I need to, right? But often when I'm modeling, especially when I'm just trying to ideate, I'm trying to get something out really quickly, I'm just using those midpoint snaps, you guys, and finding them. And Revit does a really good job of that. So I can go back in again and go architecture, mullions, all mullions. That is done, except for this hot mess in the corner. Okay, so with that, we've got just enough time to tackle this one, I think. So what I'm going to do with that, I'm going to delete my corner mullions. Oh wow, this really is a hot mess.
Whenever I did it, well, I deleted, like after I did the first slide, I deleted the end mullion and then did the second slide and then deleted that one, and now they're just like regular. They just went like that.
I don't know how you did that. That's super magical though. I'm a little jealous. Oh no. Cancel. Okay. Trim. This, and don't follow along with this. I'm experimenting. Yeah, no, that doesn't want to work.
What? Yeah, they're like nice.
Yeah, I mean, you guys, I think what I would do in this situation is I would come in and probably delete that pane. So I'm going to make it empty. And I would delete this one, making it empty. Okay. Yeah, and if you're those things can be super tricky to select as panes. So if you're having trouble finding it, you're going to use the tab key. And again, don't move your mouse around when you're using the tab key. That's going to help you select all of the options. So you're finding a corner of that glazing and using the tab key to move through it. Right? From there, I think the other really, really tricky thing with this is getting those base mullions to line up. It's like, I don't know what voodoo you did to make yours like automatically do that. That's really weird.
Whenever I made the curtain walls, I trimmed them together. Like I went like, it went like that, and then it went like that.
Okay.
And overlapped, and then I trimmed them together. Usually that leaves like a little gap.
That sounds like a fun thing to try, though.
There's still a little gap, but it looks fine. It looks correct.
Okay.
And the mullions.
Trim this to that. Oh. All right, we've got some good voodoo going, you guys. Okay, I had no idea that was going to happen. Okay, yes, new discoveries for the day. Okay, and this is always, you guys should know me by now. I try really hard to not bring any ego to any of this stuff. Okay, always, and Mary knows this very well. If I'm doing something wrong or you discover something, you find some really cool Revit voodoo, tell me. Okay, so when I drew those walls in, I started here, went across and across. Didn't draw the walls the same way. Drew them starting from edge of wall to edge of wall and left a gap. Watch what happens when you do this. I had no idea this was going to happen. I took those walls. So again, I can select my curtain wall, and you'll have this little end grip where you can push those walls around. I just kind of made a little gap between those two things, right? Then I am going to trimming this curtain wall to this curtain wall, connected those mullions together. It also kind of connected the glass, but it left a gap there. And so what I'm saying, yeah, exactly. It didn't do it?
He doesn't have the same one.
Okay, we'll take a look over your shoulder here in just a second. So the next thing, though, is if I want that glass system to be perfect, right? I'm going to go ahead and model that in as a generic component. Okay, so I can go ahead, I should be able to still select it. Yeah, there's my curtain panel. If I change that back to glazed, and change that curtain panel back to glazed, you'll see it still leaves that little bit of a gap right there, which isn't so good. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and back to the original strategy. I'm going to set that to empty. And I'm going to set this one to empty. Then I'm going to go to level 1. And I'm going to go to architecture, component, model in place. Generic models. I'm going to draw in an extrusion, and I can use these edges right here and basically draw this in. To build that. Okay? You don't know how I did that?
I love it.
Okay. I'm going to zip through that again, okay? So, do you guys see the L shape that I'm building though? Do you guys sort of see how I'm setting that up as a pattern for my glass? I want to make sure you guys understand conceptually. And then now let's go through it pragmatically. Okay, so let's discard the extrusion. Finish model. Yes, I want to continue. Okay, so I'm going architecture, component, model in place. Architecture component, model in place. So again, model in place is anytime I have something that I don't have a standard component for, I'm always going model in place. Yeah.
How did you delete your little window?
Well, tab isn't the delete. Arizona, I'll come back to you. You can actually go ahead and model this with your windows still in place. Okay, and then we'll come back and delete them. Because they're actually not deleted. I've changed that from being there to just being an opening.
Is that the glaze?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, so we're going to go model in place and generic models. We are doing a simple extrusion. Simple extrusion. Because we're just drawing the base of that glass. Okay, so extrusion. And I'm just using my line tool. I'm going the outside edge of that glass.
Wait, where was extrusion?
It is red checky box. Create extrusion.
Oh.
Okay.
I don't have it.
Right there.
And I'm going to go right here.
No. Right there. Yeah.
Architecture.
Oh.
So I could just build whatever house I want.
Yeah, so format.
Yeah, this tool, and that's the best analogy. This tool is exactly like Format, right?
This is more rules.
So line. So essentially, I'm using the existing edges to help build that closed loop, which is the glass shape that runs through that corner without a mullion in the corner. Because there is no default no corner mullion button in Revit. Okay, so once I have that, and then I'll help everybody out. We'll go rest of the day kind of work day here. But I want to go ahead and finish this out. I'm going to green checkbox. And then I'm going to grab that and position it in the right place. Just like that. Notice it is not the right material. It's just going to show up as a default. It's going to show up as a solid. Real simple fix. I'm going to select my object. I'm going to go to my material where it says by category. 3 little dots. And we're going to change that to glazing. Default. Where's my glass at? Glass, right there. Cool. So, let me stop my recording.